heck? Good morning, everybody. How are you doing? Everybody making it? How was yesterday for you guys? Was it confusing? Did you get a lot done? Morning. Hello, hello, hello. Oops. Oopsie. Good morning, guys. We are going to have a Nearpod today, so I'm going to go ahead and give you the link to that. And I have copy pasted something since then. Link. There we go. So those of you who want to get into the Nearpod and start on the journal entry, you can. We're going to go. Oh, why is it not copying? So there's the link to the Nearpod. We are going to start, however, by looking at the over the project that you guys are going to do. So if you can get into Schoology, please go ahead and open the European Theater Project. It's at the bottom of the class content folder. And I'm going to share my screen just in case there are people who cannot see it. Good morning. So were you guys able to get stuff done yesterday, or did you just how was class? Anybody here? Nobody's talking. Hi, Mario. Those of you who are at home, please go ahead and turn on your cameras. Those of you who are at school, do not turn on your cameras, but I would like you to say something in the chat for me, please. Because what we're going to go over at the beginning of today is going to be super important. Because it's your first summative assignment. Woohoo! While we're waiting, if you do want to start the Nearpod and start on the journal, you can. And then we're gonna wait just a couple more minutes, and then we're gonna have to get started because we got to get going today. Okay, Giselle, that's fine. It's like sort of an either or situation. So I need to hear from Peyton, Alejandro, Ulissa, Haley, and Bennett. If you can please put something in the chat so that I know that you are really here. Thank you, Haley. Okay, that's all I needed. Thank you very much. Just so that I know that you're here for real. Okay, Ulissa, thank you for letting me know. If I forget and call on you later to read something, just remind me again. Good morning, Cash. Good morning, Ray. Here is the Nearpod. If you want to start the journal entry while we are waiting, we're going to wait 2 more minutes. Good morning. This is a fun, interesting time as, you know, internet learning is. Good morning, Vincent. Oh, he can't hear me yet. Good morning, Vincent. Here's the link to the Nearpod so you can start your journal entry. We're going to wait another minute, but we're going to start by talking about our European Theater Project. If you can't get into Schoology, I have it up. If you can get into Schoology, it is at the bottom of the class folder. This will be your first summative. So we want to talk about it today. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So go ahead and pause working on your journal entries and let's talk about your first summative, the European Theater Project. So for this project, you're going to pick one of the playwrights that I have listed below, and you're going to research what they contributed to the theater, basically. You must use and cite one source for the project and for your paper. I've actually decided to separate the two. I should have edited this. So your paper is actually going to be on something different. I decided it would be too hard to write a research paper on this topic. So after you turn this in, you're going to have a different topic. You're basically going to be watching a piece of musical theater to write your paper on. Okay. So it's going to be a little bit easier. All right. Your research should come from credible sources, and we're going to have some time to talk about that in class. So this is what I need you to do in your project. You're going to introduce the writer to your audience. You're going to give us a brief overview of what they wrote, and you're going to talk about why they're important. Okay. So, why are these authors people that we still talk about, people that we still research, people that are still performed today? And I've broken it down into eras. Okay. Now, you'll notice in Elizabethan England, I didn't put Shakespeare. Okay. For the reason that there's just so much, it's just been done so much. And there's so much research that I thought you probably would get a little overwhelmed. So instead, I've given you options like Marlowe, Ben Jonson, Thomas Kidd, John Fletcher, just to name a few. In French neoclassicism, I have Racine, both of the Corneille brothers, Jacques Prédon, and Molière. So I did include Molière, who we're going to talk about today. For Spanish theater, we have people like Lope de Vega, Calderón, Inés, Tirso de Molina. So you've got some options there for the golden age of Spanish theater. And then we have some fun Germans. So we have Klinger, we have Goethe, we have Schiller. So any playwrights that you're interested in who are not on this list, you have to have it approved by me first. And I'll tell you right now, I really don't want you to do someone like Shakespeare just because there's so much out there. Now, when is this going to be due, you are asking? This is going to be due on November 9th. Okay. So take a look at the calendar. You have basically like a week and a half. So break this down for yourself into pieces, right? Pick your person, or maybe pick a couple of people who sound interesting, do a little bit of research about them, and then make your decision, right? It's not going to be that difficult, I promise you. You've already had a little bit of practice doing something similar to this. So just basically tell us, what they did, some stuff that they wrote. Why are they important? Why do we still talk about them today? What questions do you have about the project? Yes, you have no groups for this. It's just you. And then you are going to write your paper on something different. Because I was thinking about it, I was looking at what they want for the paper, and I thought this is going to be kind of hard to write the paper about. So I changed the paper. The paper is going to be much easier. For the paper, instead, you are going to just watch a musical and write a review, essentially, of the musical. So it's going to be much easier than the original paper. The paper is going to be due the 19th or 20th. Which one of those is a B day? Not entirely sure. which one is a B day. So whichever one of those two is a B day. So right before the Thanksgiving break. Oh, we got a couple of people who are just joining. Okay. Yes, Ashley, but the paper is now separate. Let me edit that because I don't want it to be confusing. The paper is not going to be about a European theater anymore. I can show you what I have for the paper if that would make it easier. I'll edit this and I'll re-upload it. Where is my? So this is what you're going to be doing for the paper. You're going to be able to choose a musical from this playlist that I found. And then you're going to you're going to present the body of work, say why you picked it, analyze it, and then reflect on what you sort of thought about the performance. And I can go ahead and upload that too later today. Okay. So research projects due November 9th. The paper is going to be due, whichever one, I think it's the 19th is the B day right before. So you'll have essentially, you're going to finish the project, right? And then you're going to have 10 days to watch a musical theater production. And they're all pretty decent quality. And write this little paper on what you saw and what you thought and what you liked and what you didn't like. How does that sound? We sound pretty okay with this? Yeah? So 11 days to do the project, 11 days to do the paper. Neither of them are extremely huge assignments, really, right? Like I said, I purposefully pared down the project and then I pared down the paper and changed the subject of the paper to make it something that would be more fun. You get to watch a musical. The musicals are all, there's a variety of them. Shrek the musical is in there. So, you can pick something that really interests you. I can help you find something that's in there that I think you would really like as well. I'm not 100% sure if it is or not Zion, but I know that I can get you a link to Hamilton. I can also get you a link to In the Heights. I'll tell you right now that YouTube bootleggers on YouTube have been putting their bootlegs under slime tutorials. So it'll say like Hamilton slime tutorial, and that will be like the Broadway production of Hamilton that somebody shot with like a camera. It's pretty wild. But anyway, so let's go ahead and move on. Our Nearpod today, those of you who did not get it earlier, here is the link. If you did not get a chance to finish your journal, please do so later today as your homework. All right, so we're in France, right? As I mentioned, everybody who was anybody in England, anybody who had any amount of money ran away to France, right? Because they didn't want to be sort of next on the chopping block. So they go to France, and France is under the rule of Louis XIV, who is also called And I think he actually comes up with this himself, if I'm not mistaken, the Sun King. Now, if you take a look at what Louis XIV, you can see from his portraits sort of the kind of person that he was. So let me show you this. Oh, why is it so small? Preview so big. So here's an example for you. Here's one of his official portraits with his huge, magnificent robe, his high heels, his tights, right? He loved to have, like, here's another portrait of him. Like I said, you can tell a lot of personality by his portraits, right? His biggest thing was what he loved was the arts. He loved theater. He loved ballet. He loved opera. He loved war. He loved victory most of all, right? So like even to the point where like one of the plays, I think it was a ballet that he had put on. It's not really an art, but he loved strategizing. Like he was a very good strategist as far as war was concerned. And I think that sort of like chess was the art of war, right? So yeah, he was a huge patron of the arts in France. And he loved parties. And so when all the British like needed to come in and like hang out, he was like, heck yeah, like this is going to be great. I'm going to have some best friends. It's going to be the biggest slumber party of all time for like 14 years, right? I think it's one of the ballets that he did. He actually like put himself into the ballet and he was just like on a giant swing, just like swinging during the ballet. So, like I said, that gives you like an idea of the kind of dude that he was. So very extravagant, lots of fun parties. This was his time. This was like the best day of his life, pretty much. So the biggest thing about this is the new classics or neoclassicism. So one of the things that happens during this time is that they start rediscovering and translating some of these plays from please. Ancient Greek and Roman plays, right? They start translating those and bringing them back to perform. And so they start also finding things like, remember what Aristotle wrote in the Poetics? What did Aristotle talk about? What was the thing that Aristotle said was most important in tragedy, especially? Death, yeah, there had to be a death. That's true. What else? Plot. Yes. Good. So they start to basically go back and reassess what the Greeks thought were super important, and they're bringing them back and doing these plays again. Now, with these plays, they are interpreting these suggestions that Aristotle had said as rules. Okay. You're going to learn that the French love themselves some rules with language, with art, with like basically everything. So the first thing that they say is that plays must be 5 acts, and each act must be divided into French, what becomes known. They didn't call it at first, but French scenes. Anybody know anything, or can you find out what a French scene means? Torrens got it. So I'm going to go ahead and copy paste what you said, Torrin, and share it to everybody, okay? Because that's the perfect definition. A French scene is a scene in which the beginning and end are marked by a change in the presence of characters on stage. Mario's got it too. Okay. So every single time a character enters or exits the stage, it's a new scene. Now, when I was at home teaching this, I had my big book of French Restoration plays, and I could show you what that looks like. Unfortunately, I don't have it here. But you can imagine that some of this meant that a scene might be one sentence. Like a messenger could come on and say, like, you know, Sir, Lady Marseille is here. And then the messenger would leave, and that would be a scene, right? Because a character had entered and exited. Okay, so the last rule, the super important rule here, is that we're back to saying that plays should adhere to their genre, which means that tragedies cannot have any comic relief and comedies cannot have any parts that are sad. Okay, so we're back to this idea now. So a lot of this should be sounding familiar. Does this sound right? We're sort of going back to how things used to be. But there's going to be a few changes, a few updates. So, Mario, can you read the 3 unities for us, please?
Time, 1 day, place, 1 location, and action, 1 plot, and no subplot.
Yes, perfect. Okay, so time, the play has to take place in 1 single day. The place is that the play has to take place in 1 location. And the action is that now we have to have 1 clear protagonist, 1 plot with no subplots, none of that funny business anymore, right? We've got to get right to what's happening with the protagonist all through the play. None of that other stuff happening. Okay, so here's my question for you. What do these rules remind you of? And have we heard of this in another era? So, does it remind you of something? And where have we heard of something similar? Okay, so Zion has an answer. Giselle has an answer. You don't have to worry about being right or wrong. I just want you to think, right? Where we talked about this. Torrin's got an answer. And I'm putting the time, place, and action. This is one of the most important things about neoclassicism. Go ahead and put it in the Nearpod, Mario. Sure, Brantavian, I can. All right, there we go. So I'm waiting for Peyton, Elissa, Alejandro, Bennett. Got an answer just now from Vincent. Thank you. Ray, Cash, Ingrid. Don't worry about being wrong, okay? Just go ahead and pop an answer in here. Oh, Alejandro's got an answer. Okay. All right, we're almost at 50% participation, guys. Let's go. Sure. We had time, place, and action. And I'm going to post it again in the chat for you. So time is that the play takes place over the course of one day. Place means that it takes place in one location. And action means that it has one plot, no subplots. We're at 56% participation, guys. Come on. I don't want to have to start. You guys are normally on top of things. I don't want to have to start grading you based on participation every day, too, but I will. Oh, we're at 69% now. Okay, I got one from Ray. I got one from Cash. So it looks like some of you have forgotten about some of where we talked about this before, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and share a couple of the answers. So Zion said, I think in Greece with the rules of tragedy, right? Now, they weren't specific rules in tragedy is sort of what I want to remind you of. Mario said, the rules remind me of ancient Greek, and we have heard similar rules in Aristotle's plays. Ashley said, she's not sure what Arabic, Greek, or Roman, right? Okay. So you're correct. The thing is that they are interpreting the things that happened that Aristotle said made a Greek play, like a tragedy, great, right? They're interpreting those as rules, as things that you have to do. Okay. So that's what I mean by they're taking them and making them, I'm going to go back a slide. They're taking them and making them very strict, right? Things like 5 acts, no comic relief in tragedies, making these 3 unities into very strict rules. Okay. Also, here, they're going to require proscenium theaters. So again, taking a suggestion that they get from somewhere, from the Poetics with Aristotle, from ancient Greek theater, from how the Romans staged their plays, they're taking these suggestions. Sorry, my chair is driving me nuts. And they're turning them into actual rules that have to be followed by playwrights. Okay. The good thing that comes out of this, however, is that Louis XIV does not want to watch all of these, beautiful romance, these tragic romances. He doesn't want to watch them played out with all men. So now we will have the first instance of professional female actors on stage. So, ladies, guess what? It's our time. We can finally perform and professionally and get paid to act in a play. Hooray! Finally, right? So that will be one way that they break away from the Greek and Roman example. Okay, so let's talk about a person, a playwright, an important playwright of this period. In a way, you can sort of think of this as kind of like the French Shakespeare, right? His theater that he created, the Comédie Française, is still to this day the National Theater of France, right? He was actually invited to Paris by the king himself. So what happened with Moliere was basically he set up a play or a theater in the south of France where people would go when it was like during the winter time. And that's because it was cheaper. And the king heard about his plays and he wanted to see them too. So he actually invited Moliere to come to Paris to do plays. Moliere wrote plays. He also acted in plays and he acted in a lot of his own plays. He produced a lot of plays, which at the time was pretty close to being a director. Okay. And he wrote reviews. He was a critic of theater. Okay. So this is sort of the first time that we have someone who was writing down like their experience going to a play and using it to try to influence other people as to whether or not they should also go see it. Any questions so far? No? We're good so far? Where were the plays located? Well, they were mostly done in theaters that were sort of all over Paris. There were also theaters elsewhere in France. But let's see, do I have my picture? Yeah, here we go. This was an example of one of the kinds of theaters. And these were actually theaters that were converted tennis courts. So they would take a tennis court and they would actually convert it into a theater. And if you look at the picture here, you can kind of see how this was previously a tennis court, right? You have the boxes around the outside where if it were tennis, people would sit and watch an indoor tennis court, right? And then they would build those benches on the one side, and then they would build the theater. Now, what is something that you notice about the stage itself? What do you see on stage? So these are indoor tennis courts. They're converting to theaters. And what do you see happening on the stage? Musical? We weren't really doing musicals yet, but we do see some people that are acting for sure, right? Ah ha ha, Zion's got it. People sitting on the side. Yes. If you were part of the upper class, the really important people, they would seat you on stage. Why? Why do you think that might be? Why would you sit the most important people on stage? Closer look? Yeah, that could be part of it. Why else? Why would you want to sit on the stage if you were super important? Have the best view? Aha, Cash has got it. Cash, can you share that with everyone? Cash knows. It's not about the view. It's not about really hearing. It's not about anything, but I'll copy paste what yeah, there we go. Because of privilege. They wanted everybody who was there not just to watch the play, but to see them because this was a big social event, right? So they would wear brand new, beautiful dresses and beautiful suits, right? And they'd sit on the stage itself, and everybody who was in the theater would be watching them to see how did they react, right? If the king is there and he's just laughing hysterically, well, you're going to laugh too, right? Okay. So we've got the people on stage who are sort of the upper class. We've got people again who are standing, right? Where did we see that before? People who are standing to watch the play. Groundlings, says Haley. Yes, perfect. Now, they certainly aren't as cheap here as they were uh, in uh, in Shakespeare's time, right? Because this is an indoor theater, but you could stand to watch the play. Then we have these like box seats, and then we have the benches. Okay. But yeah, it was a big social event. It would open like 2 to 3 hours before the play would start. They would serve champagne, they would serve little hors d'oeuvres, right? You were there to gossip, you were there to mingle, you were there to socialize, and then you would see a show. Good. Excellent. Good job, guys. Okay. So we're going to watch a little bit of Crash Course Theater, and I want you to think about the church and specifically about Tartuffe. Okay. So take a second, screenshot this if you need to, and I'll type it in the chat. Okay. Put that in the chat so you can take a look at it while we watch our. It's not working. Of course it's not. Why would it? All right, let me pull it up. It's been doing this thing lately where it like doesn't import the video properly. I'm gonna give you guys the link.
When school isn't a place.
Okay, let me see.
From anything immoral or indecent, but as long as they avoided lewdness, we desire that their occupation. Actor writers Turlupin, Gros Guillaume.
All right, here we go. Trying
the
to
keeper of the king's carpets and
trying to get it where it shows you just the part about Moliere.
Moliere was born in 1620.
Okay, there we go. Let's start it here. Share. Copy. All right, so go ahead and watch the part about Moliere and Tartuffe. It should start you at 5 minutes and 34 seconds. And then I think it ends around like 10 and a half minutes. So go ahead and watch that. Think about those questions and we'll come back.
The keeper of the king's carpets and upholstered furniture. Very fancy. But Molière gave it all up to become an actor. When he was 21, he ran off with the actress Madeleine Béjart and they founded the Illustrious Theatre. They toured for a couple years before going bankrupt. Molière went to prison for a day, someone paid the debt, and then the troupe went right back to touring. Molière founded a new company, picked up a couple patrons, and started writing farces that gently mocked French manners. He arrived in Paris in 1658 and impressed the king, who gave his troupe the title Troupe de Monsieur and let them share a palace theater with a commedia company. And how did Molière celebrate? He wrote Le Précieux Ridicule, a play that made fun of the Académie Française. It probably won't shock you to learn that Molière was not into the neoclassical rules. Molière spent most of his life in hot water. He wrote School for Wives, a comedy about an old man who tries to marry his young ward. And when people called it immoral, he wrote The Critique of the School for Wives, a play that mocked those objections and the people who made them. A group called the Divots objected to the naughtiness of the plays and their realism, but the king was a fan and even gave Molière a pension. And when the original Palace Theater was torn down, the king hooked Molière up with another palace theater. Scholars have divided Molière's comedies into comedies of manners, character, and farces. Molière wouldn't have understood his output this way, but some of his plays lean heavily on the stock characters we've come to know and love. Others, while still funny, have greater psychological depth and are more closely attuned to contemporary French society. Molière's comedy wasn't based on exaggeration or wild coincidence. Looking at you, Plautus. He believed that the duty of comedy was to hold a mirror up to life, a mirror that involved some extremely witty dialogue. You haven't achieved anything in comedy unless your portraits can be seen to be living types, he said. One of Molière's best loved and most scandalous plays is the 1664 comedy Tartuffe, or L'Imposture. Hold up that mirror, thought bubble. We meet Orgon, a bourgeois dad who has recently fallen under the sway of Tartuffe, a holy man. And actually, Tartuffe isn't a holy man, he's a con man. And everyone in Orgon's family realizes this, but Orgon and his mother. Orgon believes Tartuffe and decides to give him his daughter Marianne, and Marianne is not psyched. Tartuffe also convinces Orgon to disinherit and banish his son, Damis. Orgon's family tries to get him to see through Tartuffe, but they're unsuccessful. Elmire, Orgon's clever wife, convinces Orgon to hide under the table while Tartuffe tries to seduce her. Finally, Orgon realizes Tartuffe is a fraud, but Tartuffe gets hold of some incriminating letters and has Orgon kicked out of his own house and accused of treason. It seems like it's all going to end badly, but somehow Louis XIV hears about Tartuffe's duplicity and arranges to have him arrested. Rex ex machina. Orgon gets his stuff back, the family is reunited, and his daughter gets to marry someone she likes. Guess how much the Catholic Church liked Tartuffe? Not at all. A lot of religious leaders thought Molière's attacks were about them specifically. The Archbishop of Paris wrote a letter saying he would excommunicate anyone who saw or even read the play. Pressured by the church and by family, the king supported a ban. Molière had to revise the play, rewriting it so that it made less fun of the church, and he also changed the main character's name, but that version was banned too. He wrote a third version in 1669, And that's the one we have today. Thank you, Thought Bubble. In 1667, an anonymous letter was published, Letter on the Comedy of the Impostor, defending the comedy. It was probably written by Molière, but we don't know for sure. The letter said that it's right to laugh at the ridiculous, and that the audience would become more moral through that laughter. The author hoped that people would see the hypocrisy, pretension, and greed that Molière skewered, and work to rid themselves of those same qualities. Basically, look in this here mirror, society. In 1673, Molière premiered his last play, The Imaginary Invalid, about a hypochondriac who tries to marry his daughter off to a doctor. Molière himself played Argan, the hypochondriac, but Molière really was ill. He had tuberculosis for many years and began coughing up blood during a performance. He was carried home and died that night before he could renounce acting and be given last rites. That's right, the church denied him a Christian burial, but Louis XIV intervened and had him buried in a churchyard. Now here's the part that Yorick likes. A century later, after the Revolution, Molière was dug up and moved to the Museum of French Monuments. 25 years after that, he was buried again in Père Lachaise, where you can visit his grave today. Rest in peace, Jean-Baptiste. After Molière's death,
All right, so again, let's go back to the Nearpod. Sorry for those of you who hopefully you were able to see most of the video. So, collaborate board. So what has the relationship between the church and the theater been like up to this point? So go ahead and put your thoughts about that on the collaborate board here in Nearpod. So what's the relationship like? Again, you don't have to worry about being right or wrong. I just want to see what you think. Okay, hostile. Yep. Church didn't like the plays. The church never liked theater because they mocked the church. I think the plays are making fun of them. Yep. You're all getting it. Yep. Oh, back then, Mario. Yeah. By up to this point, I mean by like whatever point in history we're sort of looking at the time. Sorry, I should have. Doesn't like the church because they make fun of them. Plays made fun of the church and they didn't like it. They're not getting along. Sometimes the plays were insulting. The church thought the plays were insulting and about them. Yep. They refused to like it. Yes, good. All right, so you guys are getting it, right? We've already seen this in England. And what happened in England when, there was problems with the church? What did we just see happen at the end of the last chapter? Who took control of the throne? Yep, Ashley says here that they denied the theater. Yep, they thought the church thought the theater made fun of them, right? So it's a hostile relationship. You guys understand that, okay? Seems like everybody who's responding understands that it's not a good relationship. It's pretty hostile. And there's a lot of tension that's going on, right? The tension in England was also exacerbated by the whole thing that happened with the Anglican Church, right? You guys remember that with Henry making his own church, right? Yes? Okay. All right, just to make sure that everybody understands it, because this is going to become important again. Okay, so after 18 years, Charles II, remember him? He creates an army. He goes back to England. He takes back the throne that, you know, he's supposed to have, right? That's what we call the Restoration. The Restoration is the rightful heir of the throne being restored, right? And basically what they did was everything that they enjoyed in France, all of that stuff about neoclassicism, they bring back to England with them, okay? So they're going to bring back the neoclassics, all the rules. They're going to bring the idea of women being able to act on stage, okay? All of that stuff transfers with them back to England, okay? In fact, one of the really interesting things, if you look at this period in time, is that they actually like all the laws that they backdate, they like backdate at 18 years as if they're trying to pretend that that 18-year period when they weren't there, when the country was under this like really austere religious control. It's almost like they're trying to pretend that it never happened. And you can imagine how the people who had to stay in England, the people who couldn't afford to get out, you can imagine how they react to that, right? They're not going to be super excited about that idea. Okay, so we're not going to go ahead. We're not going to do this because we don't have a lot of time. So I want you to instead for the exit ticket, okay? I want you to make a list for yourself, and we can make it all together. Let's go ahead and do that. Why don't we do it all together? Let me make a whiteboard, okay? You guys see the whiteboard? Yes? Okay, great. And let me bring my little text box over here. Maybe sometimes it lets me do a text and sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so let's do, okay, so we've got that on this side. What color should France be? Red, maybe? Oh, blue. And then over here we have France Theater. Oops, I clicked out of it. Okay. And then let's make a big ol' line down the middle. Okay, so somebody tell me something that was a quality of Elizabethan England theater. What was one quality of the theater in Elizabeth, or either side? Just tell me which one. A quality from Elizabethan England theater or, okay, good, excellent, Vincent. No religious plays. Good, right? No religious figures allowed. Excellent. What else? Yeah, it can be better. Good. Strict rules. You want that in neoclassical France? Is that what you're talking about? So we're going to put the 3 unities, right? What else? These will be the notes that you can put, and you can add on to them. Problems with the church. Okay, now that's something that they have in common, right? Oh, excellent. Good job, Ashley. All right, so that's something they have in common. Now, the church that they have that they're dealing with is different. Let's be clear about that. Here it's the Anglican Church, and here it's the Catholic Church. Okay. What else? Think about what we talked about Shakespeare. Did he mix genres? Did he mix tragedy and comedy? A seat? Okay. Oh, yeah, special effects. Okay. So but what about the public theaters? The public theaters were affordable for everyone in right? Oh, Zion says special effects. That is true. Good. Oh, can't edit that one now. What else? What about the genres of plays? Yeah, sit on the stage. Thank you, Zion. Good. Proscenium theater required. We did not see prosceniums in Elizabethan England, right? Excellent, excellent catch, Ashley. Think about the genres of plays. What did we say that had how they had to be in France versus how they had to be in England or how they were in England? No comedic relief in tragedy. Okay. So the genres were very strict in France, right? Were they in England? I think Mario just shook his head. Were the genres very strict in England? No, right? Okay, good. Okay. Shakespeare did what he wanted, right? If he wanted to mix tragedy and comedy, he was gonna, you know? Okay, well, if you have anything else to add to that, you can go ahead and do so, okay? And then that's what you'll submit for your exit ticket. So if you wanna take a snapshot of this whiteboard, you can do that. Oh, Zion, that's a good one. They both had some entertainment aimed at the king, right? I'm going to put ruler because we had a queen in Elizabethan England, right? Good. All right. So they've got some similarities, but they've got some pretty big differences, okay? So if you want to make a screenshot of that, you can. And add, if you want to add some stuff to it too, you can to turn in for the exit ticket. Okay. So that'll be the exit ticket for today. And then if you did not get a chance to finish your journal entry earlier, make sure that you do that. Okay. Any questions, concerns, anything that I can clarify for y'all? So I will put this is the exit ticket right here. Instead of doing it in a group, the group was all together, okay? So either take a screenshot and add some stuff if you want to, or write these down for yourself, but this is what the exit ticket is. You just need to submit what we came up with all together, okay? Oh, well, that's for both of them, right? So I think that sort of falls under entertainment written for ruler, but you're right. Yeah. The people in charge It was really their opinion that mattered. Okay. All right. Okay, guys, that is it for today. So go ahead and make a copy of this for yourself so that you can submit it for your exit ticket. And I will see y'all on Friday. And we're going to talk about Spanish theater, which I think you guys will really, really like.
Thank you, Dr. Ashley.
Bye-bye. Bye, Mario.
Thank you.
You're
Bye. Have a good day.
welcome. You too.
Bye.
Bye, Ingrid.